Hello there, and welcome to podcast number 68. I am Steve, and today I am joined by.
Ian,
And still no Daryl in sight. It's been a while. He's not dead, really. Um.
the body isn't in the boot of my car. If the police are listening, it's in the boot of somebody else's car, but not mine.
He has assured us he will be back soon. Whether that's from the dead or not is another question. I mean, we've already brought him back from the dead once, right?
Yeah, and considering the amount of cost it took to bring him back from the moon,
Oh God, yeah. He's
oh,
he's
he better come back alive because man, Elon charged us so much money to get him back from the moon. Or was it Branston or
um.
Bezos? Which one was it? Who did we?
I don't.
Which service did we use to get Daryl back from the moon?
I have no idea. I mean,
And which service left him up there?
wait, we got him back though, didn't we?
Yeah, but he was up there for a while.
Oh yeah, I suppose he was. Anyway, if you couldn't tell, we are a board gaming and tabletop podcast. We talk about all things board gaming and tabletop. Uh, yeah, how are you, Ian? Anyway,
Yeah, content enough.
content enough. Okay,
Yeah. Are you alright?
I'm okay. A little tired, but I'm good. I'm good. Anyway, um, yeah, we've not really been playing too many games, so we might actually change up the format on this one a bit. Um, we've only really got one game to talk about, which we'll get to towards the end of the podcast, but we might kind of just talk at the end about a couple of little gaming projects and stuff like that that we've had in the works that we're looking to play soon and stuff like that. So look forward to that by the end of the podcast. But in the meantime, Ian, shall we get to some news?
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 Yes, news. And first up in the news, we have WR Tell. Ian, I feel like you're best equipped to explain kind of the situation here. A lot of this is speculation. It should be.
Legal disclaimer, none of what we're about to say is true. So I was out and about with the wife the other day and I checked my social media profile because today's humans can't keep away from their phone. And I noticed a post from WRTL saying that for reasons that they're not able to explain, they are removing certain lines from sale and as such are selling the stock that they had at a large discount in order to clear them. Which then followed up by saying that they might be back.
Ah.
And there's a lot of confusion and a lot of the posts were very, is it possible that GW have swung the ban hammer hard at them because the miniatures in question were named Dread Squad and were very unapologetically based on the sort of Night Lords characters from the Night Lords Omnibus. So there's a series of books about, there's Soul Hunter, Voidstalker, and Blood Reaver, not necessarily in that order.
Hmm.
But they're books about a series of characters who were part of the Night Lords Legion, Chaos Space Marines, and they're very, very popular. And these figures were perhaps heavily inspired by these characters, and very obviously so,
Hmm.
in my opinion. But yeah, they've been taken off their website, so that they went up for like 20% off, quite a large discount for what is quite new models as well. They've very recently come out.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
I've been keeping track of it because, I mean, when was the last time they July 29th they posted a teaser for the Pariah of Dread Squad. So that's a Chaos Space Marine. Very obviously a Night Lord. It has what I would consider very obvious Night Lord symbology on the shoulder pad.
Okay.
So I think that's the last time they posted something that was that. That was Dread Squad. That hasn't since been removed. So looking through their Facebook now. 19th of August. Yeah, 19th of August they posted a picture of the Dread Squad stuff as well.
Okay,
Which I
so
think
really recent. Like
that's the same miniature they posted a picture of, saying this is a new miniature. Blah 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 blah. Stay tuned. Check it out, sort of thing. And then since then, 23rd of August, the new Pariah has now been released. What's next for Dread Squad? Meet the Treacherous Devourer. So
right.
that is another new miniature for that squad announced on the 23rd of August. That is less than a month ago.
Yeah.
At time of recording. And then there's nothing else on there at the minute. That doesn't mean there wasn't stuff, and it has. Oh no, there we go. More stuff about the Devourer Dread Squad on the 6th of September. That's the pictures of its helmet and what looks like a completed miniature rendering.
Right. Okay.
So like we're talking super recent. This is new models that they are in the process of making.
Yeah.
And they've been making for a fairly short amount of time, but very high quality, but also very obviously inspired from something that's owned by GW.
Yeah.
Obviously, all the comments were, "Oh, GW's got in touch," but they were very clear on their post. They won't be discussing the reasons that they've taken them down.
Yeah. Okay, so
it's hard to say, but I mean the facts are they have a very new line which seemed to be very popular, based around something very heavily GW that has suddenly had to be taken down. They're not able to provide a reason. And it wasn't that long ago that GW went a bit nuts on animators for a similar thing.
Yeah, I remember talking about that before. I think we were talking about it like when we were talking about the GW Plus thing.
Yeah, like the Games Workshop Plus stuff, they went in quite hard on a lot of the animators, especially obviously the ones that didn't join them.
Yeah,
because they did hire a few, I think. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because again, we don't know for sure because they've not stated. But if I were GW and I was swinging my big corporate business lawyer around roughly tackle height, I would also request the companies that I'm going for that they don't say that I was involved, because it doesn't create a particularly community positive image.
Yeah, definitely. The only problem though is that usually where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, like we can't say that
those
it definitely
are rumors.
is. Yeah, but
no smoke without fire.
But generally, like, let's talk a little bit about RTLW here for a moment, because I know that you particularly have been a big fan of their work, and I think you've talked about them several times on this podcast before, because they do several really nice proxy miniatures, like the Eldar stuff we've talked about before. Looks I would really, say
really if we're talking about the stuff they've done, that is of excellent quality, to the point that it's better than any other company that makes models of the like, in my opinion. Their orcs are absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
And their Eldar, I think, are excellent, but also get a lot of attention because they're just models that Games Workshop don't seem to be interested in giving the spruce up.
I think
how long that will last, I don't know, but the Scorpions, is it Phoenixes?
The it's
guys.
the something salamanders, isn't it?
Oh, they're dragons.
Fire dragons.
Fire dragons, the striking scorpions. They do have howling banshee models. They're not my favourite.
They've got warp spiders as well, which are quite cool.
The warp spiders are amazing.
Yeah.
The howling banshees, looking at them now because I've got the page up, actually do look quite cool. They're just, I sort of prefer the GW ones.
Yeah, I mean
they've been redone fairly recently by GW.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is if the thing is you like it's real easy to say that if this is what has happened, Games Workshop are well within their rights to basically swing the ban hammer where it's really obvious that people are infringing upon their copyright and stuff like that. However,
I think that the
there are
most obvious thing
questions.
that they do is probably the Elder, but do
Yeah,
GW have a copyright on the general shape of a Space Elf style model? And the answer is probably no.
yeah, that's probably
Do
it.
they have a copyright on the Night Lord symbol? Yes.
Yeah. So the thing is, though, is this does raise some questions. Like just to lift the curtain a little bit, we did talk about this between myself, Ian, and Daryl. We were talking about this a few days ago, and one of the real damning things I feel like all of us had to say about this was there's obviously a demand for these models. Why do Games Workshop insist on redoing their Space Marines for the 50th time in 3 or 4 years when there's obviously a demand for these models to the point that other sites are just making their own and selling them off? Like, yeah, it's cheeky, but
I think the most impressive models they've got, in my opinion, are the Striking Scorpions, which I purchased myself. I have a squad of those Striking Scorpions somewhere in the rough menagerie that is this room. I think they're behind me, and I painted maybe half of them. And you know what having models is like. You sometimes just stop, but they're gorgeous models with brilliant poses that capture the essence of the model, but also make them quite predatory,
yeah,
which is
they're
cool.
very Predator-esque and they do look very, very cool. But yeah, it's
I,
like,
I think what we'll see, because they've obviously said that the models might come back. I think we'll see those models return without any Night Lord symbols on.
I think that's the thing, and this is something we've talked about before, is a lot of the things that could really get a lot of companies pulled up on copyright and stuff is if they start using the symbology within the universe. We won't name names, but there's certainly
No, because
a
if Games
company out
Workshop
there.
do end up watching this, I'm not dobbing in the companies that I'm buying models from at the minute,
But
because they're making some beautiful sculpts of things in a scale that better suit what I need, and I'm not dobbing them in. I
but
will not snitch.
I will say there is a company out there that makes corn berserkers, and they have the World Eater symbol on them, the jaws eating the globe.
So they're not Corn Berserkers specifically, but it's the legs and torsos
Yeah.
of heresy style armor in a scale that better suits Primaris,
Mm,
but very, very directly copied from the original Forge World sculpts and then the plastic kits that Games Workshop have done. But
yeah.
yeah, it has the more over the planet symbol. If I hold my hand up, no, wrong side because it's reversed. Uh, there, you won't be able to see them anymore.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Nothing to see here, Games Workshop. Move along.
You've just got to hold your hand there for the whole rest of this video now.
I'll put a towel over them.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't see them. You definitely can't see the World Eater symbol. Hang on. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Just Games Workshop Valkyries. That's all that is. Don't worry about it.
So if you hear me say at any point over the course of the rest of this video, Ian, lean, it doesn't mean anything. It's just
No, it's
it's a
irrelevant.
nervous tick. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we move on to another story? I feel like we could probably be here
Yeah,
for
I think
another half hour
the,
on this, but
the
it
only thing I wanted to say is Games Workshop made a point of hiring some of the creators for their animation.
yeah,
Now, WRTEL, obviously, there's a possibility that they approached these people and they said no because they make money hand over fist on their beautiful models. But why wouldn't you want to try and encompass some of these models? If you're so dead set on saying that people playing your game can only use your models, and there are people out there making models like that good,
yeah,
like you can, they're down there, aren't they?
they
Yeah.
are. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I mean, someone might zoom in on the Howling Banshees or the massive war boss they've got in the background. They're gorgeous.
yeah.
try and hire those people.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
I would want some people who can make Elder models of that quality, and with a faction that needs a reboot as much as they did. Why wouldn't you? Or buy the rights. See
yeah,
if you can get some of the rights for some of these models. Like, granted, they're not plastic kits; they're resin kits. But maybe sell them on Forge World. People will buy them. Elder collectors will buy them. Hell, I bought them.
yeah.
Like, I just think they're missing something here. Like, there's so much talent out there, and they're so protective of their IP. People are bending rules left, right, and centre to use their IP because that's what a lot of people want, and it's what a lot of people are passionate about. I just see it's interesting to me that you wouldn't take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, we did joke about it that it's probably better that they don't hire them simply because although they can't make these things anymore, they can carry on making beautiful, like, original models and stuff like that. Because if they sign up to Games Workshop, all they do is their first assignment, here you go, let's design some Ultramarines. It's kind of
The
like,
Primaris Lieutenant requires making. Make
yeah,
the newest Primaris Lieutenant.
yeah, and it would. I feel like their talent could quite possibly be wasted there, but
Sure, it's just a mindset thing, though, isn't it? Like,
it is, yeah,
if I were a Games Workshop and I saw those Elder models, I wouldn't be thinking, let's sue these guys.
yeah.
Or even the Dread Squad models, let's sue these guys. I would be thinking, wow, like that's a level of talent that we could be making money off of.
I mean, at the very
Like,
least, couldn't they try and accommodate them some way, perhaps on the Forge World website or something like that, where they could perhaps flex their creative muscles a bit more?
this is it, because they could buy the sculpts as they are almost if they wanted to, couldn't they? Like the rights to those specific sculpts
Mm.
and sell them on Forge World.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's one whether WRTL would want to sell them, because I don't know if they're actually breaking any copyright laws with the models they've got. For the Elder I'm thinking about specifically at this point, or even going so far as Dread Squad without the Night Lord symbology, and I think there is some Blood Angel symbology on some of them as well.
yeah,
Some backstory stuff for some of the main characters, but with that trimmed off, I wonder whether they still. I don't know, because if you look in that picture there, this is a model they're still advertising on their website. On the very top left, there's a character that is very obviously a Space Marine chaplain.
yeah,
Skull helmet, rib cage, chest plate, very terrifying looking visage, candles, all sorts of culty, religious vibes. They're very clear. It's very clear that's a Space Marine. So that's
yeah.
not the issue. It must be the symbology.
It has to be. Yeah, it's the thing that they're most likely to have a copyright on, isn't it? So, anyway, let's move on to our second story.
Yeah.
We are now taking a visit over to Pandasaurus Games, who had a very unfortunate incident recently where their warehouses got broken into, and they ended up getting away with. Sorry, I know it was 100 copies of Dinosaur World. The Kickstarter
It's
version,
200
and 200
copies
of
of Loop.
Loop. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, apparently they were professional thieves, were in and out, loaded up their truck, got away with 300 board games. However, luckily, it's 2 games that aren't released yet. So they said that the thieves passed the games on almost immediately to an online retailer who proceeded to put everything up on eBay, at which point they went, yep, there they are. They're the stolen copies. So they said they've identified who the thieves are, and they've also, I think, retrieved a fraction of the stolen copies, because the online retailer, I believe they got in touch with and retrieved some of the copies. I don't know whether it was all of them, though. But Dinosaur World is priced at like $70, and the Loop is priced at $49.95. So that's a fairly sizable chunk of money, but it just seems like, I don't know whether this was a random hit. It certainly doesn't seem like they knew what they were taking, because
They seem to find someone who could take it off their hands, though.
yeah,
Whether
yeah.
it's a dedicated eBay seller for that sort of thing, or whether they just went to an online fence.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that a thing?
I
I'm
have
not
no
a criminal.
idea. No, I am also not a criminal. I couldn't tell you about that, I'm afraid.
I'm not I'm not a criminal.
Ian, lean.
Uh,
But yeah, like if they knew what they had, they would have known that it would be easy to trace the second they got put up on the internet.
sure. I
Like,
mean, it suggests that the seller didn't know that there was anything wrong,
yeah, that
or they're seriously ballsy,
one of
or
the
that
two.
insurance would cover it when the police reclaimed it.
But I mean, it does look like that they've cooperated, to be honest. There is an update at the bottom that actually says Pandasaurus was able to contact the online seller and get them to take down the listings and return the games. So they obviously cooperated with that. By that point, though, I think,
It's that or
their
prison,
hands were
isn't it?
red. Yeah, by that point, like, they were tainted by it. But my guess is they've probably passed on the details of the people that have sold these things to them, because they've claimed that they've identified the people that stole them. Just as kind of like a reassurance and stuff, they actually did say that the Kickstarter copies of Dinosaur World, they still had enough to fulfill all the Kickstarter backers. It was kind of like it was an excess as such. Because usually you find with Kickstarter versions, some of them will be made available to people after the fact, kind of thing. So it looks like that supply wasn't eaten into. So I mean that's good news. But yeah, it kind of feels like they should have done a little more research into what they were taking, because it seems like
It's good, isn't it, that they managed to catch them so quickly and managed to reclaim anything, and that they're able to, I mean, see that, it's very clear that there's some criminal activity going on. It's handled quite well by the sounds of things.
yeah,
It doesn't mean they're not all off the market. So
yeah,
I think what the article, and I think what Pandasaurus probably prefers, if you see them online, they're probably stolen. So
yeah,
report it.
yeah. But they definitely have encouraged people not to buy them if you see them available online at the moment, because they are stolen copies. I mean, I very nearly backed Dinosaur World because I'm a big fan of Pandasaurus Games. They've done a lot of stuff I've really enjoyed, and I know for a fact they made Dead Man's Cabal, so I know they made a game you enjoyed as well.
That's a great
So
game, yeah.
yeah, like I really like Pandasaurus Games. Like their output's really good. I was quite upset to hear that they got broken into, and I'm glad it's all been sorted out fairly quickly. Don't think there's much more we can really say about that. So
What's next on Sad News Saturday?
on I'm afraid it doesn't get much better, because next we are talking about Keyforge. Oh, this is quite upsetting for myself and Daryl, probably more so than yourself. I know you're not
I
the biggest
passively
fan of
understand
Keyforge.
the frustration, but maybe not actively upset by it.
Yeah,
I could see why it's a problem, and I sympathise, but it doesn't directly affect me.
yeah. So just to bring you up to speed about what we're talking about, Keyforge has been put kind of on a hiatus. So yeah, I mean, they're not saying it's dead, but it's certainly wounded right now. It's all down to the algorithm, because if you know anything about Keyforge, Keyforge is described as a unique card game, as in every copy that you buy of Keyforge will have a unique deck that no one else in the world will have. It kind of like comes with a funny little name to it, and then it will have a combination of 3 different houses, all of which have their own different cards in them as well, and kind of mashes them up together. And that's your deck. There's no deck building involved in it. But unfortunately, in order to keep track of all these things and make sure that everything stays unique, it needs quite a complicated printing algorithm to make sure there aren't double ups on things, and ways of tracking what's already out on the market and stuff like that. And unfortunately, that's crashed, and they've kind of said that there is no way of them being able to continue printing decks without completely rebuilding the algorithm from the ground up. So what does this mean exactly? Although they have said that there is a new set on its way, it's obviously going to be delayed by a fair bit now. but they are going to release bits of artwork and stuff that are eventually going to be used in the new set when it does eventually get released. I don't know what this means for older sets as well, because usually you can carry on buying the decks. Like, you can still buy the very first season of Keyforge. You can still buy decks for that. But I don't think they're going to be able to print anymore, from what I understand. If this algorithm's gone, I can't understand how they're going to be able to keep up with like what's already available out there if they're building this from the ground up, and how they can avoid reprinting some stuff that's already there. You know, it's a very complicated thing, and it probably comes at quite a bad time for Keyforge, for Fantasy Flight as well, because they did announce recently that they're kind of done with Legend of the Five Rings as well, on a separate story, which we're not actually going to cover today. So, you know, this is the second major card game that's kind of done for now. I mean, the reason I say it's a shame for Fantasy Flight as well, because I think this might be their biggest seller out of their catalogue.
Would not surprise me. Maybe like, I mean, Legion's expensive, isn't it? So I wonder whether they make, but how much, whether one, the profit margin's big because they share the IP with Star Wars, obviously, and two, whether, I don't know, I think people who are into Keyforge will buy a few Keyforge decks. You know, I think it's cool to buy a deck and just be like, oh, cool, what's inside now? Whereas I think when people buy Legion stuff, they buy an army and leave it at that. Ooh, interesting. I can't imagine Legion's far off the mark, but it doesn't surprise me if Keyforge is their biggest seller.
I honestly think, from what I see happening at tournament level and stuff like that, I think X-Wing is closer to matching Keyforge than Legion, I think.
That's, yeah, a fairly good shout.
Yeah,
it's been going from Gru as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, like you've got like Marvel Champions and Arkham Horror both sell well, but they're not really tournament games. You know, in terms of getting a community together of a lot of people to play these games, it's not quite as large as something like Keyforge, you know. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be a little bit disappointed with this, but just know that it's not the end of it. There may be a bit of delay on, you know, your ability to be able to further it a bit more. I also wonder whether this is going to drive up the prices of the older sets. I know at the moment you can actually get hold of them quite cheap at the moment. Like, they're not like overly inflated prices and stuff, which kind of surprises me, because I would have thought there'd be a big rush for people to go out and get these decks, especially seeing as they have said that your decks are still going to be legal, you know, when they start everything up again. So everything you've got, it's not invalid. So you're not buying useless decks if you're rushing to buy them all. Or maybe I'm completely wrong and they have got something in place which is going to allow them to carry on printing these things once it all gets going again. But I'm very skeptical of that. But yeah, like, it looks like they're still very much trying to push this sixth set called the Winds of Exchange, I think it's called. But I think they've speculated that it could be on its way to retail right now if it wasn't for this setback. So that's got to be quite devastating news for fans of the series. But yeah, it looks like one of the things that may temper your grief over this news is that it looks like they are working on a digital version of Keyforge. So it looks like you're going to be able to enjoy it as kind of like an online thing fairly soon. That's probably going to help to keep the community alive, I imagine, in the meantime, because I certainly don't think there's going to be very many official tournaments being held, like, whilst it's out of print, I imagine. But saying that, I think they still run a lot of games that are out of print. Like, I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's still Armada tournaments and stuff like that going on, you know. But yeah, I know this is certainly different to perhaps something like when Netrunner went, because with Netrunner, they lost the license to that, and that obviously will have stopped them from even being able to advertise tournaments, I imagine, like official Netrunner tournaments. I imagine there may possibly be something stopping them from doing that, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily too up on copyright law, despite the fact this has been a very copyright heavy
Yeah.
episode, Ian Lean. Yeah. but but yeah, like me and Daryl were, funnily enough, just talking about around Christmas this year of wanting to buy a few more Keyforge decks and possibly be playing it a little bit more. But yeah, it's a shame. But anyway,
It is a shame.
it is.
Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not relevant.
Yeah, it's yeah, that's it.
I do like it. I just don't like that I can't theme my decks.
Yeah.
That's it's well documented, my issues with Keyforge.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see you soon, Keyforge. But anyway, that is everything we've got in the news, which means it's time to talk about what we've been playing.
Time for the olds.
Okay, here we go. This is what me and Ian have been playing these last couple of weeks. We played a little bit of Sanctum, a game by Philip Neddick, who also made Adrenaline that we talked about a couple of podcasts ago as well. It's published by Czech Games Edition. And yeah, it's a game that's kind of dice. It's kind of like a dice manipulation game. And sort of a race. It's not really a race game, but there's certainly an element of there being a track that you're moving towards, and there are certainly bonuses to getting through it as quickly as possible. It does somewhat punish people that perhaps have taken too much time. So the idea is that there is a demon that is invading a little village, and you're tasked with defeating this demon, but you kind of want to hound all the glory for yourself. So there's a competitive element to making your way along this adventure path. You're kind of bringing out demons, and you're fighting them by rolling your dice and then manipulating them for uses of powers and equipment. And yeah, you're just trying to make your way to the eventual demon, like the Fellowship heading towards Mordor, and yeah, that's basically it, really. It's got quite a simple system. You've basically got three options on your turn, which is you can either choose to move to the front of the queue, so you jump to the very furthest forward part, at which point you have to choose some monsters that are kind of going to go into your threat area. And that's basically the end of your turn if you decide to move. There are little things as well, like if you move to certain points, you perhaps claim some treasure at the end, and everyone else does as well. But generally, that's it. You can also choose to attack, so everything that's in your threat area you can then attack. Which can gain you equipment, which will give you extra options in terms of being able to shield off damage and manipulate your dice and stuff like that. And your third option is to rest. You need to rest if you decide you want equipment. And also, in order to use those abilities that you've got in your various powers and your equipment, you have to spend stamina and focus, I think, were the two currencies that you had on there. Once you use one of those on a particular ability, on a piece of armor or a skill, it also eats up that ability on there. So again, you're not going to be able to free up using that ability again until you go and rest again. So it's got a real simple kind of setup for players. There's not a lot of complicated things to think about and stuff like that, but it does provide you kind of like a fairly straightforward adventure. And the dice manipulation works quite nicely as well, because you're kind of pushing your luck with it. Like, have I got enough things to be able to manipulate going into this next fight? Because the more monsters you fight, the more choice you have over what you're getting. Because you've kind of got a skill tree on one side, which are represented by red, blue, and green color, which have gems of that color on them. And when you defeat a monster, you get to move gems up that tree of that particular color, depending on the color of the monster. When all the gems are moved off a skill, you've unlocked that skill, and now you've got an extra cool way to be able to start manipulating everything. But also on these monster cards, it also notes on the front what kind of equipment they're holding, because you are limited with what you can equip. Like, you can only have one helmet, for example. So there's that to consider as well when you're starting to look at monsters. So another reason why you may want to be moving quite a lot and picking up a lot of monsters is because it gives you first choice on all those things. But then you've got the important thing as well, which is the dice faces that are actually shown on the monster card as well. That's basically what you have to roll. When you make an attack, you roll all the dice that you've got, and anything that hits that number that's on that monster gets to score a hit on that monster, score all the hits on all their dice, and that monster's dead, and you get a cool piece of equipment that you can equip soon. So there's certainly a lot to think about here, despite the fact that it's all boiled down to 3 simple actions, which I quite like. I like it when games do that. They give you a few key commands that you can initiate in a game, but there's a lot you can do, or there's a lot of decisions to be made as to how you use them. It's one of the things that really appealed to me about this game. Ian, what did you like about this game? Like, how did you find the experience of it?
I really enjoyed the mechanics
Yeah.
of the dice rolling part of the mechanics, the weapons equipping and the way the turn order worked, and things like that. I enjoyed all of that. I felt it was fairly balanced. I think the characters were really cool. I think their individual abilities were different enough, beneficial enough, and relevant enough that they were all sort of, you had to make choices to decide what you're doing first and maybe leave some things behind. I really, really enjoyed the game. I had that one complaint where I just sort of thought it didn't make much sense.
Yeah.
The story of it, the lore side of it, didn't feel like it made sense, and also the part of it where it's competitive didn't make much sense. It sort of felt like game-wise it was more geared towards a cooperative experience, but it sort of wasn't. It felt like it should be.
Yeah. I think that one of the things we discussed is it certainly feels like there should at least be a variant in it where perhaps it ramps up the difficulty a bit more, but you're working together rather than against one another. Because the whole theming of there being a big demon at the end that's going to destroy this village if you don't take care of it quickly, and everyone just wants to be the person that gets the final hit on him kind of thing. And therefore not working together, and perhaps wanting to throw one another under the bus at the risky kind of play of taking all the glory for yourself. It doesn't feel very
rather than like a group of adventurers or a group of heroes banding together to fight the villain. It was a group of heroes have an inside bet on who can kill the villain first. No rules apply. Let's screw each other over to get to the end in order to be the one that wins.
The thing is,
which just feels counterintuitive. Which,
yeah,
I mean, I don't agree with. I don't mind. Sorry, there being a game mode where it's like it's you versus the world. Let's see who you can screw over on your path. But the fact that there wasn't a mode that was let's work together to kill the boss felt like an oversight.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I did want to point out as well is the fact that both of us made it to the point of the boss without taking any damage at all. Like, the whole aim of the game is if you take damage, it's hard to get back. So you want to try and push the boat out and try and get to that boss without taking any damage beforehand. And I don't feel as if either of us even really broke a sweat getting to the big demon at the end of it. The The actual fight with the demon, though, like if you've misbuilt your character, for example, he will just kill you in one hit at the end, and there's very little you can really do about it if you've built your character not necessarily in an optimal way. Like he will hit you with enough in the last round. Oh, sorry, in the first round of the fight against him, he can hit you hard enough. If you don't have the means to deal with it, he will kill you in one hit, kind of thing. Which would seem a bit anticlimactic, perhaps, for some people. Like especially if they breeze
Especially
through it.
as the ease of getting to the end.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it easy, but it's very doable.
yes,
Like so long as you play the game at a vaguely respectable level, you're going to understand how to negate damage and get to the end without any real issues. And you get a rest, so you get a lot of your stuff back anyway for the final fight. So long as you're not actually stupid, you'll be fine.
yeah. I
And
mean,
then you get to the boss and like maybe have misunderstood something or gotten to that point just before the end, and then just gets like you took a lot of beating.
I only had one
Uh,
health by the end of it.
yeah, but like I feel like that could have easily been less. It's a dice game. Like you're not always in a position to win something. You might not be able to adapt to what's happening.
Yeah,
And you're right. You could get towards the end of the game and he just slaughter you.
yeah. I mean, just to put things in perspective. So, whereas before, you always kind of like on the way up there, you always kind of know how much damage is going to be dealt to you because you have a row of monsters. If the amount of damage they're going to do to you is way too much, should you not be able to deal with them, that's kind of on you for taking too much into your threat area. However, when you get to the boss, you've all of a sudden you've got a queue of 5 attack cards, and between each one is what's called a fury card. And the idea is that at the end of your turn, any cards that you haven't been able to defeat on your turn, all of the damage to the right of that card in the queue is going to pile on you. So, for example, if you were to completely fail, the boss would be dealing 10 damage to you. And it's up to you to then be able to deal with it by using some of your stamina or your focus in order to fill up basically defense points on your various bits of armor. Um, like it's very unlikely that you're not going to defeat a card, but the problem is if you only defeated that one, you may well be flipping over that fury card afterwards, because the idea is you move across these cards from left to right until you've beaten all of them. But the fury card you flip over, there's a very good chance that will have 3 damage, so all of a sudden you're not dealing with 10 damage, you're dealing with 11. All of a sudden you've managed to beat the 2 card, but it's been replaced by a 3 damage card instead, which would be disastrous. But I will say neither of us really struggled to get through the first 2 cards. So I think both of us, at least by the end of the first turn against the boss, we were both dealing with 8 damage. I think you might have been dealing with a little bit less. I can't remember how far you made it across on your first turn.
I almost got rid of 3 cards on my first turn.
Yeah. But
I was 1 dice off.
yeah, so the idea is the further down the queue that you're getting on those cards, he's actually going to be dealing less damage to you. That's kind of a necessity in this game as well. Like they couldn't start ramping up the damage more and more, because if he's dealing enough damage to be able to kill you in one turn, if he's doing that every single turn, then no one is going to be surviving the last fight with this dragon. Basically, because you're also limited by how many potions you've got. You can only carry 4, and every potion only allows you to recover 1 space on your skills and put the stamina or focus token that was placed on there back into your pool to be able to use again. So in other words, if you have skills which require 2 slots to be taken up, it would cost you 2 potions to be able to fill that up again and be able to use that slot and have the extra components back to be able to use again. So, like if you've got 2 skills which take up 2 slots, for example, it's going to take all your potions in order to be able to use them again in the boss encounter at the end. Like you could run out of them very, very quickly. And I know I was definitely in a situation where I'd used up a hell of a lot of my equipment slots in the first round. Like I had to use a hell of a lot in order to bat off the damage, and I was kind of struggling to use potions at the right time to be able to free them up to be able to defend against more. And I made it through the boss battle at the end by the skin of my teeth. It it was weird. I kind of said like I had things that worked with me, but also things that worked against me. In that I had a skill, for example, that said I could treat ones as sixes and sixes as ones. So really, on these attack dice, these attack cards that showed up, I wanted to see a lot of ones and sixes on there, and I think I only had three or four in total out of all of the cards across all 10 cards that I had in front of me. So that was kind of a bit of a downer for me. But on the other side of things, you have a pool. Like if you've managed to gain all your dice over the course of the game, I think you can have a maximum of 6 dice as well to be able to play with. I had 5 going into the final encounter, and Ian had 6. But one of the dice you had to pay a focus for every single turn. So considering that every attack has 2 dice on it, and then the Fury cards have a possibility of having 3 dice faces that you have to hit on it, 2 cards is potentially all I could make it through per turn. However, at the same time, I got really lucky in that my Fury cards, I only had one that had 3 dice faces on it. Every other one had 2 on it. So there was certainly stuff that worked against me. Like, unfortunately, the layout of dice that I had across my cards did not suit my skills, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse if I'd drawn more with the 3 dice faces on. So just to put things into perspective a little bit as well, if you're talking about the kind of things you've got that allow you to manipulate things, you may have some armor that might have a spot on it that says -2 or something like that. So in other words, you move a token onto that, you can -2 from any of your dice results in order to try and hopefully gain a dice result that you need in order to score a hit, basically, on something. So there's a lot of stuff like that. You also, every character has a rage token that they can flip on their turn in order to just change any dice to any face they want. And yeah, then you've got lots of other kind of skills that allow you to manipulate things in various different ways. Like, I think my character, I didn't manage to unlock this skill, I think, but I think I had something where I could use a potion in order to change a dice to any face I wanted, but it would mean eating up all of my potions very quickly. And going into that final encounter, you need your potions to be able to defend against damage. That it seems like that is your main thing that you need stuff for going through this final encounter, because if you don't have any means of defense, if he doesn't kill you in 1 hit, he's killing you in 2, basically. So you need that kind of defense, and that was kind of cool to have. Like, I don't know, was there anything you wanted to say about the final boss encounter and how you found it?
I found it quite easy, but I think my character was geared almost perfectly to deal with it. So I had an ability that allowed me to use gems, which would normally be a currency, as a source of blocking damage. So I prioritized getting all of those gems and freeing them all up. So I negated, I think it was 6 damage.
Yeah.
I negated 6 damage straight from the off, which put me at a huge advantage because I didn't have to use my stamina and my focus to allocate resources. So straight from the off, I think I only had to allocate focus to get rid of 2 damage. I think I was only taking 8 on the first turn.
Did you say as well that you rolled quite well?
I did roll very well. I didn't have to adjust. I think I rolled my first 6 dice, and I only had to adjust 2 of them.
Yeah.
Oh no, I rolled 6 dice. 4 of them came up how I wanted, and 1 of them I got to set before the roll.
Yeah.
So I only had to adjust 1 dice, which I think I used my thingy for, my focus, my rage. So like I was pretty dead set on not using any of my resources in the first round. And then my ranger character had an ability that allowed me to freely take 1 resource back before I roll, which it was just very, very powerful. Like as a combination, I wasn't spending resource, and when I was taking it back. And by the end, I just knew that I had more resource than I could ever use to defend damage, to change dice, and that realistically, I could have rolled the worst thing on earth and still successfully defeated the boss in that round
Mm. Yeah,
without taking any damage.
yeah. It is worth noting that out of my practice game and the game we actually played, I still don't know how I think it's like a cleric character. I haven't seen how that one plays yet. But out of all the characters I've seen, the one that can get you through, which neither of us played at, is the barbarian character. It seemed like he played very, very easily and was a really good kind of like entry level beginner kind of character. I felt like even without really knowing what I was doing, I still managed to beat the boss with him. Um, and yeah, it wasn't even with like an optimal build. I still managed to get through with that. The thief I found quite tricky, but saying that, I managed to get through it in the first one. When I played as the ranger in the practice game, that's actually the character that I did not make it through with. The boss actually managed to wipe her out. But then, if you want an idea of perhaps how little attention I paid during that practice game, you unlocked a skill with your ranger that I didn't even know it had. Like, I like. I definitely find sometimes is when you're doing a practice game and you're certainly playing with multiple characters, sometimes you're not too focused on like the abilities of characters and stuff like that, and you're more just focused on learning the mechanics of the game and stuff like that. But yeah, but yeah, like
What ability was that? Was that the one that allowed you to change your dice, or was it the one
no,
that allowed you to get your mana back?
it was the one that allowed you to get your mana back. So essentially, you were getting a free thing every turn, and considering that the ranger had an ability, and this is one that I did have during the other one, where you could basically spend a focus in order to add a new dice into your pool. So you went from 5 dice to having 6 dice. You could have that on just an infinite thing basically with the ranger, because you just take a focus back off of that every time, add a dice to your pool every time. It's certainly useful for the last encounter with the boss, because without it, you can only get as far as defeating 2 cards per turn. Because even if you get lucky with your the drawing of your focus card, you're going to have to use 6 dice in order to get through them all before that point. So it is actually impossible to get through more than 3 cards within one turn. So there is that. And the quicker you get through
I think in,
cards at
in
the
my
beginning,
second turn, I think in my second turn I got through 3 cards.
but you might have scored a hit
Oh,
earlier
oh yeah,
on one of the other
I
cards.
damaged one of them with 1 damage. Yeah,
If someone ever says I defeated 4 cards in my first go against that final boss, they're
yeah.
bullshitting. Basically, it's like you cannot have more than 6 dice, or at least in a two-player game, you won't ever have more than 6 dice, which means you physically cannot do it. But anyway, that is Sanctum. I found it quite enjoyable.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I mean, I always have some criticism of games that I want a very specific thing that I want that other people probably don't want or don't care too much about. But as a game, I enjoyed it. I'd play it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you said let's play this, I wouldn't be upset.
yeah, yeah. So okay, so we've not necessarily run a full hour here, so I thought just for maybe 10 minutes or so, we'll just talk a little bit about the things that we're planning on playing fairly soon. Like, we always have games that we keep saying to one another, like, oh, we need to get together and play some of this soon and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've got several things I'm looking at the moment. So I thought I'd start off by saying that I would really like to get back into core space, which I have talked about on the podcast before. It's the one where you set up. It's kind of like somewhere between a miniatures and a board game. So you can like buy miniature sets of extra crews and stuff like that, and you can design your own crew. And the idea is that you're basically swooping down onto a planet. You might have a mission that the crews are competing over for the bounty, but also you're kind of just looting everything. It's really cool. The game actually comes with crates where you can actually put the tokens which show what gun it is on the inside, and you randomize it all up at the beginning. So it's a bit Borderlandsy or perhaps Diablo-ish in the idea that you're opening chests and seeing what's inside it, and then attaching it to your crew and then improving them that way and stuff like that. And it's a game that I've definitely been looking to get into a little bit more. I'm hoping to set that up and play a bit more of this week. Ian, what are you planning to play?
I mean, I always have a couple of projects in the offing. I don't know if I can get this out because it's stuck underneath loads of Warhammer sprues.
Yep.
Not interested. Well, am interested, but not going to get the starter set with the Death Core of Krieg. But I want to use my Iron Warriors in Kill Team.
Yeah.
I know Daryl's shown some interest. I know you've shown a little interest. You've dug your Eldar out.
Yeah, I'm not planning on buying any more models, but I've certainly got some stuff in my cupboards that I can use. So yeah, I'm hoping.
I think I'm looking forward to seeing how the new rules play. I mean, it feels a lot more streamlined, restrictive. Yeah. Depends on how negative or positive you fancy feeling on which word you'd use. I've not read the combat rules per se. I've read the sort of squad building rules so far. The actual rule book still has the cellophane on.
Yeah,
which is fairly standard procedure for me. Is I'm more interested in the modelling and the squad building than I am in the actual playing. But I mean, that's one thing I'm looking at. I feel like that. I was looking at there's new Blood Bowl that got announced because it's Gen Con at the moment.
Yeah, it is. Oh man, are they rebooting that again?
Yeah.
Oh god, that's got to annoy
Bowl.
So many people.
I don't think they're rebooting the rules.
Right. Okay.
They're just releasing new teams. That
makes far more sense. Far more sense.
I've got a Chaos team that's built out of a mixture of GW models and third-party models. My little Minotaur.
Ah, very nice.
And I don't understand how cameras work, so probably not in shot. But I've got my team, which are roughly, I would describe them as Chaos Warriors, Newcastle United.
Nice.
They've got that print on their armor plates and stuff, so very cool. They're called the Men Who Stare at Goats.
You've been talking about this for a while, yeah.
And the Minotaur is called the Goat, as in the greatest of all time. I think I've done these puns before. And then the 4 Chaos Warriors are named after the 4 main characters in the film, the Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah.
And then all the goats are goat puns. So there's... I can't even think of them at the minute. It's like Diane Bleaton.
Carry on a second. I'm just going to go and fetch something real quick, okay?
Sure. But yeah, they've released a new Khorne team, which, with me having a Chaos team, I feel like a Khorne team would probably suit. I keep getting attacked by a fly. New Khorne team I'm really interested in seeing, because Blood Bowl isn't really about the bowl, more about the blood.
Yeah.
What have you got?
So I mentioned something to you the other day that I'm kind of interested in.
Is this robots?
So this is I we have this thing about robot jocks. Like, that film is awesome. Like, it's awful, but really good at the same time. And so when you see something like BattleTech, which is basically robot jocks, I just kind of thought, yeah, I want to give that a go. So I haven't got any rules or anything yet, but I've had a couple of models that I really liked, so I kind of just went for them. I don't know if you can see that.
That gives me Transformers vibes.
Yeah, I like him. He's very cool. But then you've got kind of your standard things with big guns. So
that's me vibes.
Yeah.
Always compensate for something.
Yeah, there's another one that's quite similar to that as well. But yeah, the models are a lot better than I was expecting, to be honest.
They look fairly Titanicus scale.
Yeah, so it's that whole idea of you're playing on terrain where these are obviously supposed to be massive towering robots, but they're no bigger than a space marine, really. You know, it's so it's all
Do
kind
you
of
know
like
what?
done to its
If you
scale.
want to play this, I might buy some Titanicus models because I like the look of them anyway.
Yeah,
And because I'm pretty sure they look about the same scale.
yeah, yeah. But like I say, you can't get hold of the beginner set or the.
I've had a
Did you get
Daddy
him?
Longlegs harassing me for about 30 minutes now, and I'm done with it. Right, right, get out of here!
But yeah, I've got no idea exactly how it plays
Oh,
yet
you
because at the
bastard!
moment.
Leave me alone!
Oh man, but yeah, you can't get the core sets for Love Nor Money at the moment, so it's going to be a while yet until I can get hold of those before we can start like giving that a go. But it's weird. It's like you can play it how you want. It's got rules for if you want to play it like a standard board game. You can play it like you want to play it as a miniatures game. It even has rules for if you want to set it up like an RPG and perhaps run a little bit of a co-op kind of thing with it as well.
RPG mode, please.
Yeah, so apparently when you get the starter box, it tells you how to play all of them kind of thing and gives you kind of like a taster of which ones you want and then you can play it as you want kind of thing. I mean, let's face it, if we run this as an RPG, we're just going to be doing the whole crash and burn thing and stuff like that all the time. We're just going to quote robot jocks, basically, which I love the idea of.
100%.
I'm totally on board with that. But speaking of RPGs, I like as one other thing that I've kind of like got as a project at the moment is I've been wanting to run Blades in the Dark for a long, long time, but at the moment I'm not confident I could run it. But it's based on the Apocalypse World engine, and there's a couple of really, really simple RPGs that you can play just in the short term kind of thing. And I've been looking at Rhapsody of Blood, which I did actually mention in the RPG video that we ran because it's all based on the Legacy system. Legacy Life Among the Ruins, and there's kind of like a load of offshoots from that. I know the one you said you quite like the look of was that Godsend one, where you play a god and an avatar of a god as well, and the idea is kind of like the
Yeah.
world's ending, and you're kind of almost judging the world kind of thing, and how you feel like it should end. But yeah, Rhapsody of Blood is quite simple. It's Castlevania basically. So I can only ever see this having a short lifespan because it works in a cycle of a castle appears, you attack the castle, you defeat the regent at the center of the castle, then the castle disappears. Play the next generation, assault the castle, and I can see it only having a short lifespan because I feel like people will go, yeah, I kind of want to do something new at this point. But it feels like that's going to be a good way of learning the system and being able to kind of move into Blades in the Dark from that, hopefully. Because they're kind of like their system's built on very little dice rolling. It's more you're given a series of moves is the idea. A bit like we ran the wrestling RPG a while back, and can you remember how it kind of like worked with moves and stuff like that? There was still a little dice rolling in there, but generally
Yeah.
you say what your intentions are, how you intend on using that, and kind of working from there. Yeah, it runs on a very similar thing to that, but the wrestling one we played was very limited in that it's a match followed by a match followed by a match with storyline kind of like running in between them. But when it came down to the actual action part of it, it was always, hey, you're in a match, you know. It felt like that was even more limited than Rhapsody of Blood, so I'd quite like to give that a go if I can find a group to be able to play that with. That might be kind of neat. Any other projects you've got going on at the moment?
No, I was looking at running an RPG as well. So on
Ooh.
a similar note, I've been browsing RPGs and I've been talking to Phil, not recently, but in the last like couple of months about the Warhammer RPG.
You've been talking about this for a while, haven't you? Like, I kind of like feel like the hooks were in when we went to UK Game Expo a couple of years ago, and they had all the books there then. And I think the only reason you didn't buy some books wasn't it because they said, "Oh, there's a new
I
edition of
was
it coming soon" or
the
something like
the guy
that.
selling it was like, "Yeah, don't bother, they're reprinting it," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Cool, cool, thanks."
Mm.
Yeah, it's Wrath and Glory. But I used to play the really old Warhammer RPGs, and I enjoyed them a lot. And there's off a D100 system, which I really liked. But it's a new system. I know Phil really wants to play a battle nurse. That's his obsession and has been for several years. He really wants to play a Sister of Battle nurse. Couldn't tell you why, but it whenever it comes up, it's battle nurse. Cool. Okay, Phil, you can RP as the battle nurse. That's fine. If there's anybody on the planet that I would trust to stitch my wounds back together as a battle nurse, Phil would be second to last.
Who would be last? Daryl?
Sean would be last.
Okay.
You know he would do something to make your life more difficult in the process.
Oh man, we were talking about one of the things we didn't talk about with
Daryl's
Sanctum.
not last. The only reason Daryl's not last is because, let's be honest, he'll die long before it gets to the point where he has to try and save your life.
But like on the note of Sean, one of the things we actually said about Sanctum, just going back to that, although we probably shouldn't, is it's quite possible for someone just to accrue loads and loads of monsters and just race to the end. And I feel like that's the Sean approach of playing that game. Like, get to the end and give no one a chance to build their character and just throw everyone under the bus. That would be a Sean play. But yeah.
Best human on Earth.
Yeah. But
with Daryl being currently in space.
Yeah. Well, have
or
we...
in hell.
Yeah, I think we decided he's dead right now or something. He's passed away. Although, actually, no, we were saying at the beginning we promise he hasn't. But that's what someone who has a corpse to dispose of would say.
In the Mighty Boosh. He's in the Mighty Boosh monkey hell. He was near a gorilla that was supposed to go to monkey hell, and he ended up getting accidentally dragged to monkey hell.
Oh,
and
man.
he's like, why am I in monkey hell? The monkey had a good life. And they're like, yeah, but you bombed that fox.
Oh man, that's kind of cool. We've kind of got a mix of different, like, long-term things we've got. Like, me and Daryl
I wrote that campaign for the 40k stuff we're going to do, and it's just getting the people organised to do it feels like absolute effort.
Yeah.
So I think it's turning into a kill team campaign, just because everyone's just got a bit more time for the smaller scale sort of skirmish games than they do for the big open play experiences. I know me and Andy hung around to play 40k, and I mean, by the end of it, we were like, I don't know if we want to do another. Whereas I feel like if we met up for a day, everyone would have to play a few games for that to work, and it's.
I find that
I feel like kill team's a better alternative for doing a long campaign.
I feel like the majority of games where getting one playthrough of it takes all day, they're all exhausting. Like, it doesn't matter how good it is, it's exhausting to play a game that takes generally a long time to play. And that's the beauty of stuff like Kill Team, is it scaled it down to the fact that you can play these small skirmishes and stuff instead. Like, I find skirmish games far more palatable than large-scale, all-out war kind of things.
I do now. I'm an adult and my time is fleeting.
Maybe in retirement. Maybe.
I won't reach retirement. I'll die long before then.
I think we're living in a generation of people that are never going to retire. It's going to just be a depressing slog of working till you die.
I assume I'll die in a horrible traction engine accident.
Oh, okay.
And I think it will spread my corpse so thinly like butter over bread.
Oh, wow. Wow, that is morbid.
Like, like the big rollers at the front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyway, that's probably...
Steamroller. I'm going to die in a horrible steamroller accident, and it's going to just paste me thin.
Oh, I'm just getting like Looney Tune vibes from it, kind of thing.
The thing is, I'm so big that it'll be able to just spread me for miles.
Oh god, I feel like we've got to end it on that note. Which means if you have enjoyed this podcast and would like to follow us on the social medias, you can find us on Twitter at Everybody Dice. It's just down there. Or if you prefer Instagram, at Everybody Dice Show. Also have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Everybody Dice. Apart from that, please do give us a like and a share. Maybe subscribe if you haven't already. And if you've really enjoyed it, then yeah, just tell your friends basically and spread it round. But
Like my
otherwise,
body over tarmac.
like Ian's body over tarmac. There should be also some stuff on screen right now that you can click on should you wish to watch any more of our videos. Apart from that, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Everybody Dice podcast. Till then, bye.
Good night.